I have this question here from Mubarak. And Mubarak is saying, at the moment, I am recognized as a brand identity designer on the online space. And it's something I am passionate about, and I also do it to earn a living. But the issue is, I am someone who is also very interested in writing. It's been something I really love to do from a very young age. I love to express myself through writing and sometimes speaking, even though I am still working on the speaking aspect. I love to pour out my thoughts and help people with things I write. There have been cases where I have helped people gain clarity about a lot of things with the things I have written. But the issue now is, how do I identify as a designer and also as a creative writer at the same time? Would that not be conflicting and confusing to my audience? All right, this is a good question from Mubarak, and I want to thank Mubarak for sharing this question with everyone, because this is something that I have people ask me a lot from time to time. I have a lot of things I love to do. Which one should I do? Which one should I do? If I do this one and this one, would I not be confusing people? It's the problem of the multi-talented. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of us are multi-talented, some more than others. Some of us have like two talents that we possess. We know we are good at something. Two things, some more than two, some five. And the problem is, which one should I focus on? Which one should I put out there? And that's what Mubarak is saying here. He's a multi-talented person. And he's saying, number one, he's really good and passionate about brand identity, which is designing logos for companies and, identity systems, you understand, for companies. And that's something I did for a long time. So I understand where it's coming from. But he also said he's good. He's also a good writer. He writes well. And he's passionate about both things. And at the moment, he's earning from, let's put it as logo design. So don't say brand identity, which might be abstract for a lot of people, but logo design. And but then he also sees that he's been helping people through his writing also. Now, which one does he do so that he doesn't confuse his audience? Now, you see, when I read Mubarak's question, what caught my eyes was the last part of his question. What would I do so I don't conflict and confuse my audience? I think this is where a lot of us need clarity and direction. You see, I say it a lot, that we as human beings, we are more spiritual than we know. We are more spiritual beings than we know. A lot of us don't know how spiritual the human being is. We think we are more physical than spiritual. And that's why with my podcast, if you listen to my podcast, you realize that I talk a lot about spirituality. People say, oh, why are you always talking Bible, God, any small thing? Can't you just leave God out and leave Bible out and leave, I can't, because if I tell you, I will be confusing you. And I will be addressing the minority part of you, which is the physical, and leaving out the majority part of you, which is the spiritual. As a human being, have this in mind. You are more physical, more spiritual than physical. And that's why every human being needs spiritual alignment. And I think the problem of the world today is the fact that we take a lot of our information and our mindset values from a society that is more physical in its value system than spiritual. And that's the Western society. And ever since the West became the dominant force in the world has largely lost its way. I truly believe that the spirit of the West, what we call the West today, is a spirit. It's not just a geographical location, it's a spirit. I believe that spirit of the West is what the Bible calls the spirit of the Antichrist. That's the throne of the spirit of the Antichrist. Because it tells you to take your eyes off the spiritual and put your eyes on the physical. It tells you to be totally physical minded. And you might ask, what does this have to do with Mubarak's question? Mubarak is just asking, what should he do with his talent? Which one should he go for? It has a lot to do with Mubarak's question because the West has taught us a concept called branding. I understand this because I was into it for a very long time. And I've done a podcast on how branding has destroyed people or is destroying the world. If you want to listen to the podcast, just go to my podcast and look for the one titled How Branding is Destroying the World. And this is one of the ways where branding has told us that we are the focus and the center of our lives. And it puts us in our minds in a position where we feel like we are the center of our lives. So we have this superstar mentality. I am a superstar and I have an audience waiting for me every single time. And my job as the superstar is to play for this audience and please this audience and turn this audience attention into money. That's what we call monetization. So we monetize those who give us their attention. That's what the world has taught us. That there is gold in every single one of you. And that gold, people come to see it. There's something special, a light in every single one of you. People come to see it. And when they come to see it, you monetize it. And those people, you call them your audience. And social media has not helped us. Everybody feels like they are an influencer in one sphere or the other. And so we don't see people as people anymore. We see them as a statistic that we add to the number of our following or our audience. So the human being has become less spiritual and more strategic to gather a larger audience. The human being has become less spiritual and more strategic. And to be honest with you, this is not something that originated with the West. It is something that the devil has tried to manipulate man with from time, but the West has propagated it, and because they run the media system, they have sold it as the truth. Well, it's not the truth. But even when you look at the Bible, it's been that way. There's a part in the Bible where there was a festival, annual festival in Jerusalem, and Jesus' brothers were telling him, Jesus' brothers told him, you need to go to Jerusalem. Anybody who wants to be a public figure goes to Jerusalem. That is the strategy. All these things they are doing in Nazareth and all these small places. Because Jesus was a lot of them were villages and stuff with poor people and stuff. Nobody hangs out with the poor people and becomes a public figure. You use this opportunity to go and audition in Jerusalem and everybody will see you. Jerusalem was like Lagos, New York, London, LA, all those places, Tokyo, you understand? All those places that you go to and you can get mass attention. That's what it was like. Like they tell you in Nigeria today, go to Lagos if you want to blow. You understand? You have digital spaces to people say, if you want to blow, go to TikTok. You understand? So they told Jesus that. They told Jesus to go to the TikTok of his day then, Jerusalem, and let people see you. Gather an audience, then you become a public figure. But Jesus said something. He said, "It's not my time." You see, what Jesus was trying to say there was he was more spiritually minded than he was strategic minded. He was strategy minded. He was more spiritual in his thoughts than strategic in his thoughts. So what he was saying is that God has not told me yet to go there. By man's thinking, the best strategy is to use this gift I have to go and wow them in Jerusalem, and then they will put me as their leader. But Jesus said, no, 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 no. That's not what the Father is telling me. We are more spiritual as human beings than strategic, but the devil brings strategy to us. And the West has been the devil's well-oiled machine. The West, not particularly a geographic location, I'll let you know that. It's a spiritual thinking that started in a geographic location, but it has spread everywhere now. So when you say West, you even have Western mentality in the East now. You understand? The Western mentality has pervaded everywhere. So it's the spirit of the West. So it confuses us. Like Mubarak now is asking a question, but his biggest confusion is how his audience would perceive him. So what we see is a lot of us are led by the emotions of the people around us, not the emotion of the God within us. If there's anything like emotion of God, but there is, not the emotion or the direction, let me not say emotion of God, the direction of the God within us. So we are not audacious. Because the people around us are fickle and they are selfish at best. You see, the problems with a lot of celebrities today is that they've become prisoners of their followers. They cannot do anything without thinking of how it looks to their followers. So a lot of them, you see, you realize that when there's a problem and you expect them to speak up, they'll wait a while to see, let me see what people are saying. So I'll know what side of the divide I'll be on. I'll know whether I should keep quiet or I should speak out. If I speak out on this thing that I believe, but my audience doesn't believe in, I will lose most of my audience. Yesterday, I was looking at an advert that had Snoop Dogg and I think it was Tom Brady. Tom Brady is an American football player. And they had this advert and they were talking about racism. And I looked at the comment section and a lot of people were like, I would have loved this advert, but I stopped following Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg has lost my respect. And a lot of people were saying, I don't resonate with this advert anymore because they put Snoop Dogg there. And Snoop Dogg supports Donald Trump. So because of that, Snoop has lost my respect. You see, that is going to bother Snoop a lot. Because as a celebrity, a lot of them think about what the ordinary man thinks about them. So they don't follow their inner convictions anymore. That's the biggest burden of celebrity. And what social media has done by creating platforms where we have followings and likes and people, it has just created a world of celebrity for each and every one of us. So a lot of us cannot speak out about things or follow our inner leadings anymore because we are directed by the people around us, whether physically or digitally. That audience, I don't want to lose them. I don't want to become unpopular with them. But the audience doesn't matter. What matters the most is who is on your inside and what who is on your inside is telling you. Just yesterday, my children were watching TV and I stumbled on this as they were watching some musicals, and then it went to a Disney musical on the Disney music the Disney movie Moana. Moana. I don't know if any of you have ever watched Moana before. It's an incredible Disney movie. I think you should watch it if you've never watched it. Now, I won't go into detail of what Moana is about, but then Moana, a young girl born to the chief of a tribe on a particular island. She was the only child, female child of this chief. Now, the chief was trying to raise her up to take his position when she grows up to become the chief of the island. But this little girl, from when she was very small, something on her inside was drawing her towards the water to go on a voyage. But then the father never wanted her to go near the water because the father had experienced some trauma in his past. So he wanted them to stay on that island that seemed safe. And this island provided them with everything they needed. So he said, why should we leave this place? Let's just stay here. But his daughter wanted to venture out. And she struggled. But then her grandmother knew that there was a force within her calling her to that water, that was where her destiny lay. You understand? So something was calling her, Moana, go towards the water. Go towards the water. She didn't know where she was going, but something was telling her go. And every time she wanted to go, the father would restrict her and say, you are here to be a chief, such a lofty position. See all the people that are looking up to you. See all your audience. Do what they expect you to do. Eventually, she rebelled, went out on sea, and then she found her destiny and what she was meant to do with her life. You see, a lot of us are in that position of Moana. We think so much about the people that we are serving, and we abandon the voice on the inside. But I want to have you know, like Moana, you are more of a spiritual being than you are a physical being. A lot of your leading is from the inside, not from the outside. The outside should never control your actions. Only the inside should. It is God on the inside that should always control your actions. I think it's very important that we keep this in mind. Very important that somebody here keeps that in mind. God controls your destiny. God is on your inside. More on your inside than on the outside. Now, why do I say this with Mubarak? Mubarak is what I would call a polymath. A polymath. He has a skill in more than one area. Some people are way deeper in this polymath nature than Mubarak. But Mubarak, let's call him a polymath. We've had a lot of polymaths in history. One of them, a very, very, number one, if you even check for polymath, I'm sure his name will come number one. Because the guy is a mystery. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a polymath. He's the poster boy of what it means to be a polymath. He had skills in art, visual art, in architecture, in medicine, in engineering, in writing. He had skills in everything. In warfare and strategy, he had that skill. He was a polymath. Benjamin Franklin too, polymath. Aristotle, polymath. There are a lot of them. Through the ages, they are polymaths. They are good at more than one thing. But the problem is that the biggest issue we've had is that we've not had a polymath that has taught us spirituality. So a lot of times I don't try to look to Da Vinci, although I want to learn more about him. I was able to do this. So there's a book that my wife got for me. It's called Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. If you're a polymath, I would say read that book. Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. Let's see. I want to find out how he was able in his lifetime, because he didn't live that long. I think he died in his 60s or in 70s, but I know he didn't live up to 80. You understand? So I don't know how he was able to fix in all these things into his life. He was able to do groundbreaking work in medicine, in architecture, in art, in all those areas. He was able to do groundbreaking work. I don't know how he did it. You understand? But then that's why I want to read that book and advise anyone to read it. Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. Um, but the thing is, we've not had a lot of polymaths that have taught us spiritual guidance. I don't think Leonardo da Vinci was very high on spirituality. I don't think so. You understand? I've not read so much about him, but I don't think he was a highly spiritual person. He's someone that believed in God and asked God's direction for things. And I think that must have frustrated him a lot in his life. That's why you realize that when he painted, he hardly completed his commissions because he painted for money. A lot of times he did art for money because he realized that that was the easiest and fastest way of him getting money. But it got him in trouble with a lot of his clients. Hardly completed commissions. Hardly. The Mona Lisa that we all celebrate today caused a feud between him and the client. It was his client's wife. But then he took the commission because he needed money. And as he was doing it, he got a higher commission and abandoned that job. And it caused a feud between him and that man. You understand? So he did that for money because he didn't know what to focus on per time. So he was always drawn to the one that paid him the most. That's why a lot of people remember him as an artist, because medicine was too long to get him returns. Architecture too, engineering, those things did not really get him returns. But art, he could do it and get returns easily because the world was very art-based then. So he did a lot of art. That's why a lot of people remember him as an artist, but he was way more than an artist. It was in his old age that the king of France told him to come and live with him, and he would just pay for his lifestyle and allow him to do anything he wanted to do without thinking of survival. And he said that that was Da Vinci's happiest period in his life because he didn't have to think of doing things for money anymore. And that's the issue a lot of polymaths have. This confusion of I don't want to lose my audience because that is my meal ticket. It is what Western branding has taught us. People are a meal ticket. Your gift is a meal ticket. So use it to make profit. But God is telling you your gift is way more than that. Your gift is to be used purposefully, not particularly profitably, not financially profitably. The first thing your gift is for purpose. Is to make plain the will of God. That's the first thing before any financial anything, is to express the will of God. With every single time you have a gift, you must come to God to say, what should I do with this gift? Who is it for? Who are you sending me to with it? And how do you want me to express it? Mubarak, my biggest advice to you is to be more spiritual. Forget about the audience. Think about the director within you. What is he telling you to do? A lot of times when people ask, I have so many gifts, I don't know what to do, it's because they have too many voices. Too many voices. You are listening to too many people that are teaching you how to be profitable, but nobody's teaching you how to be spiritually purposeful. That's one of the reasons why I do this podcast and I answer people's questions, because I realize that not enough voices telling people to follow God. A lot of people are telling people to follow trend. Build your audience, build your tribe, build your this, build. After you build, you build. There's more to life than that. What you need to ask is the person who gave you the gift to write, to design brand identity. What do you want me to do with this thing? And that's why if I look at polymaths, I will look at biblical polymaths. I've said it before, my yardstick is the Bible. So I always go to the Bible. So Mubarak, I will tell you about a biblical polymath whose name was David. David was a polymath. Number one, he was a good shepherd. He understood shepherding very, very well. When it comes to dealing with sheep, he knew them. You understand? He was good at that thing. He knew how to do it. Number two, he was good at warfare statistics, tactics, sorry, not statistics, warfare tactics. He knew how to fight. He knew when he was a lion what to do, the kind of weapon he would use. He knew when he was a bear, the kind of weapon he would use. He knew when he was a giant, the kind of weapon he would use. He knew how to fight. He knew how to strategize fighting. It came to him naturally. Number three, he knew how to play instruments. He knew how to play instruments very well. Number four, he knew how to write songs or poems. Then they used to call them psalms. They were like poems, they were like songs, but he knew how to write them. He could write. He was a great writer too, like you. This guy had all these four things. But you see, all these four things, he did them for God. He did them with God in mind. When he was shepherding like God, with God in mind. God, what should I do with this sheep? When he wrote his poems or his psalms, he wrote them with God in mind to express himself. When he fought with God in mind. He played the instrument with God in mind. People say when he played the instrument for the king, demons came out of the king. Demons. But he did it for God. Everything was for God. To the extent that when it seemed obvious that he was meant to use a particular skill, he still stopped to ask God. There was a time some people came and ransacked his people. You understand? They came and ransacked the whole place and took the men, took the women and stuff. And he came and immediately he should have said, this is my time to use my skill of war strategy. But he still stopped and said, God, what should I do? What should I do? I know I can. If it's to strategize, I can strategize. I can go and get these people. I know exactly what to do. I have the gift. If it's to go and I can pick their trail and I can get to them and kill them all and get our people back. But tell me, which one do you want me to do? Do you want me to write a psalm right now? Do you want me to play an instrument right now? Tell me which one to do. There was a time the king of Israel was looking to kill him. This was obviously warfare. But most times when he saw the disadvantage of the king of Israel, Saul, who was looking to kill him, he saw him disadvantaged. He said, no, this is not the time to use my skill of warfare. It's not the time. This is not what God wants me to do. He was not led by people. The people on the outside were telling him, this is your time. Go and kill him. The guy is not looking. The guy is unaware. The guy is alone. Go and kill him. The audience was telling him what to do. But he said, this is not what God wants me to do. Look, if you're a polymath out there, remember you're more spiritual than physical. Physical is strategy. Spirituality is leading. Let God tell you what he wants you to do. All this, but I don't know when God is talking to me, because you are not used to talking to God and you are not used to hearing God talk to you. A lot of times what we call prayer is us blabbing. That's why you don't know God's voice, because you don't listen enough. We blab too much. We talk a lot. God, I want God, I want God, I want God, give me, God, give me, God, give me. No. Sit down for a while and learn to hear God's voice. It's there. I understand, because I was a blabber before. Blab a lot. But just, a few years ago, God started to teach me the place of quietness. And then your mind will become like a calm surface of water. And every small thing that drops will become a ripple. And you realize that you begin to hear God. You begin to hear God. It is not audible. It's sometimes not audible. It's a feeling. It's an incredible awareness, more or less. And then you begin to build strong convictions about what you should be doing. Your audience does not determine your expression. God does. And sometimes God will say, I know you can write, but this is not for you to write right now. Stay with brand identity. I know you can do this brand identity, but forfeit this brand identity that is going to pay you 100 million and write for that person that is paying you nothing. You must be able to stop and ask God. The spirit of the West is teaching us not to ask God, to choose our way, to choose our audience. But God is saying there's only one audience that matters. Him is an audience of one. God. When people are telling you, go to Jerusalem if you want to be a public figure, you must be able to say, it's not my time. And they would laugh at you. Jesus' brothers laughed and mocked him a lot. You see, but in the end, do you remember any of Jesus' brothers' names? Not a lot of them. A lot of them lost in history. A lot of them lost in history. Even the ones that were disciples were not prominent disciples. But you remember Jesus' name because he followed the one person in the audience. The one audience, the audience of one that mattered. That's why he always said, my Father's will. Not my will, my Father's will. I can go to Jerusalem and be a superstar, but then it will all fall apart like a house of cards because it is not from the director himself. I understand what you're going through, Mubarak, because I go through it too. At the moment, someone approaching me, telling me, I want you to do this branding project for me. It's hard though, because I need the money right now. On a good day, see, the person that sent me a message, I've not even replied. I'm not talking about last week, I'm talking about yesterday. Someone sent me, still on my phone. And I'm like, God, this is enticing. This is enticing, God. Is it time to bill? Should I bill? Because I know how to do it. I can do it. I can knock it. I can knock that ball out of the park. And people will clap for me. I know how to do it. I know how to do it. But then I have to stop and say, God, tell me what to do. And in fact, by answering your question, God is already telling me what to do. So as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to me. You ask this question so that God can give me clarity also. Because the truth of the matter is that voice of God in you, it's a voice, as I said, it's sometimes not an audible voice. Sometimes it's a feeling within you. In my mind, do I feel inspired to do that branding project? No. What is driving me to do it is my eagerness to get paid right now. My eagerness. Is a lack of trust, not a trust. It's not to help, it's to help myself. You understand? If I do these things to help myself, I'm telling you, I know. But you see, I still got up today, and the first thing I tried to do was to answer a question and to create content that doesn't make any sense in terms of finances. For me, it doesn't bring me any money. But then the director, the audience of one, is telling me to do that. And the truth of the matter is, my soul is also drawn towards doing that. I'm excited about answering Mubarak's question. I'm inspired to answer Mubarak's question. I find a sense of fulfillment answering Mubarak's question. That's the skill I ought to use right now. God has spoken to me. So Mubarak, forget about your audience. Have a more spiritual relationship with God. Sometimes God will tell you, this identity design, leave it. And when you check yourself, you realize that you're not enjoying it anymore. The clients you're working with, you don't enjoy them. It's more frustrating for you. Within your soul, it's frustrating. That's how God speaks to you. You understand? Tell you yourself, you know within you, the spirit, the soul within you that is connected to me is not feeling any tug on it to do this job. You're just doing it out of a sense of trying to survive. And what God really wants us is to survive on every word He tells us, not on bread. Every word he tells us. And every word he tells us is a word of direction. Do this, do this, do this. And at the end of the day, you would find more than enough to thrive, not just to survive. So Mubarak is not about your audience, it's about you. What's your relationship with God? What's God leading you to do per time? Stop each time. God, what one do you want me to use? Forget. Branding doesn't make sense. People say Mubarak is here today, gone tomorrow, gone today, here today, that kind of thing. But God is never a God of confusion. He knows which one he wants you to use per time. He might tell you, for the next 2 years, brand. For the next 2 years, after that, write. Look, when you do it with a sense of force, it doesn't help. Look, I write too. And in 2022, I started writing. I started waking up with thoughts of write. People that follow me know I write nuggets a lot. But then at the end of last year, I stopped waking up with those thoughts to write. They started dwindling. Before, they would come every single day, twice a day. But then started coming once, one in a week, once in a day. Then I knew God told me, you've written enough. Start resharing all those things you've written from 2022 and 2023. Start is a season of recycling. Stop coming up with original thoughts and start doing what do we call original thoughts is the one that is fresh for today. No, go back to the old ones. Start recycling. You see, the ego within me struggled because I felt, how now? People want new stuff. I thought I was Davido. I was dropping new songs every single day, new hits back to back. You see, that's the spirit of the West. Come out with something new content. God was telling me, no. No new content anymore. Go back to the old ones, recycle them, keep putting them out. Let people devour those ones again. But then, you know what? I was disobedient. I tried to force writing. Then I started to think of what to write. And I could tell that it wasn't hitting home. I could tell. Because God told me, forget about writing on. You're going to take a break from X, formerly Twitter. Take a break. Yes, you were active for 2 years. Take a break. Now, I will tell you when you have to come. It might be once every month, but then this time is the season for the podcasting. Freshness comes in that. Go and do that one every day. Stop thinking about your audience. I started thinking about my audience on Twitter. How about people that have been following me? Because someone even wrote me, said, Star, you don't write every day anymore. And I just said, my audience is calling out to me. But no, it's not about that audience. It's the audience of one within you. It's your Father that tells you what to do with your gift. Not your head. Not your experience. Not trend. Not your followers. Not your bank account. It's always your Father. You live for an audience of one. Remember this, you are more spiritual than physical.